The Palace of Prime stood like a mountain of blue crystal against the purple sky. Its towers reached toward the 3 moons that hung above the capital city. Inside those walls lived Queen Vila, ruler of 40 star systems and commander of the most powerful fleet in this part of the galaxy. She was tall and beautiful, with silver-blue skin that glowed softly in the light. Her eyes were deep violet, and when she looked at someone, they felt like she could see into their soul. But today, the queen was not thinking about her empire or her fleet. She stood at her window and watched the palace gardens below. There, among the flowers that came from 100 different worlds, a man was working in the soil with his bare hands. His name was Ho, he was human, and he was her husband. 3 years ago, the Empire and Earth's coalition had signed a treaty. To make the bond stronger, a marriage was arranged. Vila had expected to hate it. She had expected to tolerate some loud, crude human who would embarrass her in front of her court. Instead, she got Ho. He was quiet. He smiled often but spoke little. He spent his days reading in the library or walking through the gardens. He was kind to the servants and gentle with the children who lived in the palace. When Vila came to him tired and angry after long days of ruling, he would simply hold her hand and listen. She had not expected to love him, but she did. The problem was that everyone else in the palace thought she had made a terrible mistake. Vila turned away from the window as the door opened. Elder Myra walked in without waiting for permission. She was old, even by standards, and she had served 3 rulers before Vila. Her silver hair was pulled back tight, and her face was always set in a look of disapproval. "Your Majesty," Myra said, bowing just enough to be polite, "the council is waiting." "I know," Vila replied. "I was just taking a moment." Myra's eyes moved to the window and she saw Ho in the garden below, her lips pressed together in a thin line. "You watch him often." "He is my husband." "He is human." Myra said the word like it tasted bad. "My queen, I have served you loyally for many years, but I must speak honestly. The people do not understand this marriage. Humans are weak. They live short lives. They have no telepathy, no natural weapons, no real strength. Why would the great Queen Vila bind herself to such a creature?" Vila felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. "The alliance with Earth is important, and Ho is a good man." "Good is not enough for a queen's husband. He should be strong. He should be someone the Empire can be proud of." Myra shook her head slowly. "Instead, he plays in the dirt like a child." "He is gardening," Vila said coldly. "It is a human tradition. They find peace in growing things." "They find peace because they are simple." Myra bowed again. "Forgive me, Your Majesty. I only worry for you. The council is waiting." She left and Vila stood alone with her thoughts. The truth was, she worried too. Not about what others thought, but about Ho himself. He was so fragile compared to her people. Soldiers could survive wounds that would kill any human. Their bones were dense, their muscles powerful, their minds connected in ways humans could never understand. Ho bruised easily. He got tired after long walks. He could not hear her thoughts unless she pushed them directly into his mind, and even then, he said it felt like pressure behind his eyes. She had assigned guards to follow him everywhere. She had doctors check on him weekly. She never spoke to him about war or politics because she did not want to burden his gentle heart with such dark things. He accepted all of it without complaint. He thanked the guards, joked with the doctors, and never asked about the battles fought in her name. Sometimes Vila wondered if he was truly happy or just very good at hiding his sadness. That evening, she found him in their private chambers. He had brought flowers from the garden and arranged them in a vase by the window. The smell was sweet and reminded her of the first time they had met. "You were watching me today," he said without turning around. "How did you know?" "I always know when you are looking at me." He turned and smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that made her feel safe. The council meeting was long. Very long and boring. She sat down on the edge of the bed and let out a tired breath. Myra was criticizing you again. She always does. He did not seem bothered. She is loyal to you. She wants what is best for the Empire. She does not know you. No, she does not. He walked over and sat beside her. His hand found hers, small and warm against her cool skin. But that is fine. I did not marry the Empire. I married you. Vila looked at him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes that she could never quite understand. Most people were easy for her to read. Their thoughts leaked out like water through cracks, but Ho was different. His mind was calm and still, like a deep lake with no waves. "Are you happy here?" she asked suddenly. "Tell me the truth." He considered the question carefully. "I am happy when I am with you. I am happy when I am in the garden. I am happy when I read books about your people's history." He squeezed her hand gently. "Is that not enough? I want you to be more than just content. I want you to feel like this is your home." "It is my home," he said simply, "because you are here." She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. He was smaller than her, softer, weaker in every way that her people measured strength. But when she was with him, she felt something she never felt with anyone else. She felt understood. Outside the window, the 3 moons rose higher into the purple sky. The crystal towers of the palace caught their light and scattered it into 1,000 colors. Somewhere in the distance, warships patrolled the borders of the Empire, watching for threats that might come from the darkness between stars. But in their quiet room, there was only peace. Ho stroked her hair with gentle fingers. "Whatever comes," he said softly, "I will be here." Vila closed her eyes and believed him. She did not know that in the shadows of space, an enemy was gathering. She did not know that her quiet husband carried secrets deeper than any ocean. She did not know that everything she believed about humans was about to change. For now there was only the moment, the flowers, the moonlight, and the quiet man she loved. The storm would come later. The message came at midnight, carried by a ship that had burned its engines to ash just to reach Prime in time. The captain was young and terrified. He fell to his knees before Queen Vila and spoke words that changed everything. "The Kel Dominion has crossed the border. They are coming." The War Council met within the hour. Generals and admirals filled the great hall, their voices rising and falling like thunder. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing red dots that spread across the edge of space like a disease. The Kel were a nightmare made real. They were tall, covered in black armor that grew from their own bodies like shells. They had no art, no music, no mercy. They existed only to conquer and destroy. For centuries, they had stayed on their side of the galaxy, fighting smaller species and swallowing their worlds. But now they had grown hungry for something bigger. Commander led their fleet. He was famous across 100 star systems, but not for anything good. He was famous for the ashes he left behind. He was famous for the screams of the species he had ended. "They have 300 warships," Admiral reported. His face was grim. "We have less than 100 in this sector." "Call reinforcements from the outer colonies," Queen Vila ordered. "It will take weeks for them to arrive. The Kel will reach our core worlds in days." The hall fell silent. Every face showed the same thing, fear. At the back of the room, Ho stood quietly. Vila had allowed him to attend because he had asked. She had expected him to sit in silence and simply observe. That was what he always did. But when General suggested abandoning the outer colonies to save the inner worlds, something changed. "You are thinking like prey." Every head turned. Ho had spoken softly, but in the silence his words carried like a shout. Elder Myra stepped forward, her eyes narrow with anger. "What did you say?" "I said you are thinking like prey." Ho did not raise his voice. He did not move from his spot near the wall. "The Kel are predators. They do not respect defense. They do not respect retreat. If you run, they will chase you. If you hide, they will find you." "And what would a human know about war?" Myra demanded. Your species hides behind treaties and diplomacy. You have never faced a real enemy." Ho smiled. It was a strange smile, one that did not reach his eyes. "Perhaps." "Then be silent and let warriors speak." Vila watched her husband carefully. Something was different about him tonight. The calm was still there, but beneath it she sensed something else. Something hard and cold, like metal hidden under silk. "Enough," she said firmly. "We will not fight among ourselves. Admiral, prepare the fleet. General, strengthen the defenses on the inner worlds. We will meet the Kell with everything we have." The council continued for hours. Plans were made and remade. Arguments broke out and were settled. Through it all, Ho stood in silence, watching and listening. When the meeting finally ended, Vila found him waiting for her in the corridor outside. The palace was dark and quiet. Everyone else had gone to prepare for what might be the end of everything. "What did you mean?" she asked him. "About the Kell, about thinking like prey." "I meant what I said." He looked at her with those calm, deep eyes. "The Kell respect only one thing, strength, not the appearance of strength, real strength, the kind that breaks them before they can break you. We are strong." "Are you?" He tilted his head slightly. "Your admirals talk about defense. Your generals talk about holding lines. But the Kell do not care about lines. They will push until something pushes back harder." Vila felt a chill run down her spine. She had never heard him talk like this. In 3 years of marriage, he had never once spoken about war or battle. She had thought he did not understand such things. "How do you know so much about them?" she asked quietly. Ho was silent for a long moment. Then he reached up and touched her face, his fingers gentle against her cheek. "There are things about me you do not know, Vila. Things I hoped you would never need to know." "What things?" "Things that would change how you see me." His hand dropped. "For now, please trust me. Whatever happens in the coming days, I will protect you, I promise." She wanted to press him. She wanted to demand answers, but something in his voice stopped her. It was not fear. It was something else, something she could not name. That night she lay awake while Ho slept beside her, or at least he appeared to sleep. His breathing was slow and even, but she noticed that his hand rested on his chest in a strange way, fingers slightly curled, like he was ready to move at any moment. Outside the window, the stars burned in the black sky. Somewhere out there, Commander and his fleet were coming. They were coming to destroy everything she had built, everything her ancestors had protected for 1,000 years. Vila was not a coward. She had led soldiers into battle. She had killed enemies with her own hands. But lying there in the darkness, she felt something she had not felt in many years. She felt afraid. Not for herself, not for her empire. For the quiet man beside her, who seemed so fragile and so gentle and so completely unprepared for the nightmare that was about to arrive. She turned and looked at his face in the moonlight. He looked peaceful. He always looked peaceful. It was one of the things she loved most about him. "What are you hiding?" she whispered, more to herself than to him. He did not answer, but in the shadows of his sleeping face, she thought she saw something flicker. Something that did not belong to the gentle gardener she knew. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The storm was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. Across the stars, Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. He had heard about the Queen and her human pet. He had laughed when his spies told him about the marriage. A great empire led by a queen who loved something weak. It was perfect. He would burn her worlds, kill her soldiers, and drag her back to Kell space in chains. And the human, he would kill the human slowly, just to watch her cry. "Set course for Prime," he ordered. "We end this in blood." The war had begun. The Kell attacked 3 worlds at the same time. They did not warn. They did not negotiate. They simply appeared from the darkness of space and began killing everything they could find. The first reports came from a farming planet called 8 million people lived there. simple people who grew food for the Empire. The Kel burned their fields, destroyed their cities, and slaughtered anyone who could not run fast enough. The last transmission from was a child's scream, cut short by silence. The second attack hit a mining colony. The third hit a military outpost. By the time Queen Vela received the news, over 12 million of her people were dead. She stood in the war room surrounded by screens showing destruction and death. Her hands shook with rage. Her officers shouted orders and moved ships on holographic maps, but she knew the truth. They were losing. "Where is their main fleet?" she demanded. "Coming straight for us," Admiral replied. "They will reach Prime in 6 hours." 6 hours, that was all the time they had left. Vela turned to her guards. "Find my husband, take him to the bunker beneath the palace. Take Hana and the other civilians as well, keep them safe." Hana was Ho's younger sister. She worked as a human diplomat on Prime and had been staying at the palace when the war began. She was brave and smart, with the same calm eyes as her brother. Vela trusted her to keep Ho safe if the worst happened. "I want to stay with you," Ho said. Vela had not heard him enter the room. He stood near the door, watching her with that strange, unreadable expression he sometimes wore. "The palace is not safe," she told him. "The bunker is deep underground. It has its own air supply and defenses. You will be protected there." "And you?" "I will fight." She walked to him and took his hands. They were warm and soft, the hands of a gardener, not a warrior. "I have to lead my people. They need to see their queen standing strong." "I understand." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Promise me you will be careful." "I promise." She kissed him quickly, feeling the familiar warmth of his lips. Then she let go and turned back to the war room. There was no time for long goodbyes. There was only the battle ahead. Ho left with the guards. Ha-Na met him in the corridor, her face pale but determined. Together with a group of servants and palace workers, they descended into the depths of the palace, down stairs and elevators that most people did not even know existed. The bunker was cold and gray, built from thick metal that could survive almost anything. There were supplies for months, medical equipment, communication systems, everything needed to survive a siege. Ho sat quietly in a corner while the others settled in. Hana sat beside him, her eyes on the ceiling above them. "The fleet will stop them," she said, but her voice shook slightly. "They have to." "Maybe," Ho replied. "You do not sound worried." "Worry does not change anything." Hana looked at her brother for a long moment. She had known him her whole life. He had always been like this, calm, patient, impossible to rattle. When they were children, other kids had called him strange. He never got angry, never cried, never seemed to feel fear. She had thought he was just different, special. Now, watching him sit perfectly still while war raged above them, she wondered if there was more to it. "Ho," she said softly, "what are you really thinking?" Before he could answer, the bunker shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Everyone started screaming. "What was that?" someone cried. The answer came from the communication system. A crackling voice filled the room, speaking words that made Hana's blood run cold. "Breach in the palace. Enemy soldiers have landed. They are inside." The Kel had not waited for the fleet battle. They had sent a strike team directly to Prime, dropping from a stealth ship that no one had detected. Their mission was simple: find the Queen, kill anyone in their way. The bunker had 4 guards, good soldiers, trained warriors. But when the first Kel broke through the door, everything changed. It was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes were red and empty. It carried a blade as long as a human's body, already wet with blood. The first guard fired his weapon. The energy bolt hit the Kel's chest and did nothing. The creature moved forward and cut the guard in half with a single swing. The second guard charged. He died faster than the first. The servants were screaming, running, pressing against the walls like trapped animals. Hana pulled out a small pistol she had hidden in her jacket. It was a human weapon, illegal on Prime, but she had never cared about that rule. "Stay back," she shouted, aiming at the Kel. More of them came through the broken door. 5, 10. They laughed in their strange, clicking language. This was fun for them, hunting scared creatures in a hole. Hana knew she was going to die, but she would not die without fighting. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder. Ho stepped past her, walking toward the Kel like he was taking a stroll in the garden. "Brother, no," she screamed. Ho stopped a few meters from the lead Kel. He looked up at the massive creature with no expression on his face. "You should leave," he said calmly. The Kel laughed. It raised its blade. "I warned you," Ho said. And then he moved. Hana had seen fast things before. She had watched soldiers train. She had seen predator animals hunt on nature programs. But she had never seen anything like what her brother did in the next 3 seconds. He was there standing still, then he was not. The first Kel died before it could finish swinging its blade. Ho's hand struck its throat so hard that the armored neck cracked like thin glass. The creature fell, and Ho was already moving to the next one. He did not punch like a normal person. He did not kick or grab. He flowed through the enemy soldiers like water through rocks. Every movement was perfect. Every strike was lethal. The second Kel lost its arm before it could react. The third and fourth were thrown into each other so hard that their armor shattered. The fifth tried to run, but Ho caught it and broke its spine with one hand. In less than 5 seconds, all 10 Kel soldiers were dead. Hana's pistol fell from her numb fingers. Her mouth hung open. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. Ho stood among the bodies. His clothes were splashed with alien blood, but he was not breathing hard. He was not shaking. He looked exactly the same as he always did, except now she could see what was behind the calm. He turned and looked at her with those familiar eyes, eyes she had known her whole life, eyes she suddenly realized she had never truly seen. "Stay behind me," he said gently. "There are more coming." Hana wanted to ask 1,000 questions. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers. But there was no time. The sound of more Kel soldiers echoed from the corridor above. Her brother, the quiet gardener, the gentle man who had never hurt anyone in front of her, walked toward the sound of the enemy. And for the first time in her life, Hana understood something terrible. She had never known her brother at all. The corridor outside the bunker was long and dark. Emergency lights flickered red and orange, casting strange shadows on the metal walls. The sound of heavy footsteps grew louder with each passing second. Ho walked forward without hesitation. His steps were silent, his movements smooth as oil on water. Behind him, Hana followed with her pistol raised, though she knew now that her weapon was useless compared to whatever her brother was. "How many?" she whispered. 23, Ho replied without looking back. "Maybe more." "How do you know?" "I can hear their heartbeats." Hana felt dizzy. This was impossible. Humans could not hear heartbeats through walls. Humans could not move the way he had moved. Humans could not kill Kel warriors with their bare hands. But her brother was doing all of these things. The first group of Kel appeared at the end of the corridor. There were 8 of them, led by a larger creature with gold markings on its armor, a commander of some kind. "Human," the commander said in broken common, the language most species used to communicate. "Queen's pet, surrender now, die quick." Ho stopped walking. He tilted his head slightly, considering the offer. Then he smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was not the smile he wore in the garden or when he held Vila's hand. This smile was cold and empty, like a knife being drawn from its sheath. "I do not think so," he said. The commander laughed and charged. What happened next was too fast for Hana to follow completely. She saw her brother move sideways, avoiding the commander's blade by less than a finger's width. She saw his hand strike the commander's elbow, bending the arm the wrong way. She saw him take the blade from the screaming Kel and use it to cut through two more soldiers before the weapon broke. Then he was using only his hands again. The Kel were not weak. They were bred for war, raised in violence, trained to kill from the moment they could walk. Each one was stronger than any normal human, faster than most other species, and covered in armor that could stop bullets. None of it mattered. Ho moved through them like a storm through leaves. He did not fight like someone who had learned combat. He fought like someone who had been built for it. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was placed exactly where it needed to be. He found gaps in their armor, weak points in their bones, vulnerable spots that no normal person would know to look for. In less than a minute, 8 Kel warriors lay dead on the ground. Hana had not moved, she had not breathed, she could only stare. Ho turned to face her. There was blood on his hands, on his clothes, on his face, but his expression was still calm, still gentle, like he had just finished watering flowers instead of killing 8 monsters. "We should keep moving," he said. "The palace is not secure yet." "Stop," Hana's voice cracked. "Just stop, tell me what is happening, tell me what you are." Ho was quiet for a moment, then he nodded slowly. "When I was young," he began, "I was taken from our parents. I do not know if you remember. You were only a baby." Hana shook her head. She had no memory of this. "There is a program," Ho continued. "Secret, hidden even from most of Earth's governments. It is called the Vanguard. The people who run it believe that humanity is weak. They believe that in a galaxy full of predators, humans need something more than technology and treaties to survive." "What kind of something?" "Weapons." Ho looked down at his bloody hands. "Living weapons. Children are selected before their 3rd birthday, ones who show certain genetic markers, ones who might survive the process. They are taken to hidden facilities and changed." Hana felt sick. Changed how? "Everything. Our bones are reinforced with materials stronger than steel. Our muscles are enhanced with artificial fibers. Our brains are modified to process information faster, to feel less pain, to remain calm under any circumstances." He paused. "And we are trained, every day for years, combat, tactics, languages, infiltration. By the time we are adults, we are not really human anymore. We are something else." "Why?" Hana could barely speak. "Why would anyone do that?" "Because the universe is cruel." Ho's voice was soft but heavy. "There are species out there that eat humans for food. There are empires that would gladly wipe out our entire civilization for fun. The Vanguard exists to make sure that never happens. We are hidden throughout the galaxy, watching, waiting. If the worst ever comes, we are humanity's last defense." "And you were placed here, with the Queen." "Yes, Earth's coalition believed the Empire was important to humanity's safety. If it fell, we would be next, so they placed me close to its heart." He smiled, and this time there was sadness in it. "They did not order me to fall in love. That part was my choice." Hana stared at her brother, the brother who had played with her as children, the brother who had sent her letters when she left home, the brother who had seemed so ordinary, so normal, so human. "All these years," she whispered, "you were lying to me." "I was protecting you." Ho stepped closer. "If you had known what I was, you would have been in danger. The Vanguard does not allow loose ends. But more than that, I wanted you to see me as just your brother, not as what they made me." "What did they make you?" "A killer." He said it simply, without pride or shame. "The most efficient kind. I have ended hundreds of lives, Hana. Enemy soldiers, criminals, threats to humanity. I have done things that would give you nightmares for years." Hana did not know what to feel. Fear, anger, grief, confusion. They all swirled together inside her until she could not tell them apart. "Does the Queen know?" she asked. "Not until tonight." Ho looked up at the ceiling toward the battle still raging above. "I hope she would never have to find out. I wanted to be the man she saw when she looked at me, the gentle husband, the quiet gardener, someone worth loving. You think she will not love you after this? I think she will never look at me the same way again. Pain flickered across his face, quickly hidden. But that does not matter now. What matters is keeping her safe, keeping you safe, keeping everyone in this palace alive until the battle is won. More footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the palace. More Kel were coming. Ho turned toward the sound. His body shifted, relaxed and ready at the same time. The killing machine inside him was awake now, and it would not rest until every enemy was dead. Stay close to me, he said to Hana. We are going to the throne room. If the queen is still alive, that is where she will be. Hana picked up her pistol again. It felt useless in her hands, but she held it anyway. I have more questions, she said. I know, ask them later, when we are not about to die. They moved together through the dark corridors of the palace. Behind them, the bodies of Kel warriors marked their path like a trail of broken shadows. Above them, the queen fought for her empire. And below, in the cold tunnels of her home, a weapon that had pretended to be a man was finally showing its true face. Queen Vila fought her way back through the burning corridors of her palace. Around her, soldiers clashed with Kel invaders. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of blood. Her ceremonial sword was in her hand, stained dark with enemy blood. She had received the report minutes ago. The bunker had been breached. The civilians were in danger. Her husband was in danger. Nothing else mattered. She cut down a Kel soldier that stepped into her path and kept running. Her guards struggled to keep up. They had never seen their queen fight like this, with such desperate fury. When she reached the throne room, she stopped. The great doors had been torn from their hinges. Inside, the beautiful chamber where she had received ambassadors and made treaties was now a graveyard. Bodies covered the floor. Kel soldiers, dozens of them, lay broken and twisted in pools of their own blood. The crystal pillars were cracked and stained. The golden throne was covered in black gore. And in the center of it all, standing perfectly still, was Ho. He was covered in blood. His clothes were ripped, but he was not wounded. He stood among the carnage like a statue, surrounded by death, untouched by it. When he saw her, his face softened. Vila, are you hurt? She could not speak, she could only stare. Her telepathic senses reached out toward him automatically, the way they always did when she saw someone. She had touched his mind many times before, and it had always felt the same. Calm, peaceful, like a still lake on a quiet day. Now she felt something completely different. Beneath that calm surface was a hurricane. Layers of control wrapped around something vast and terrifying. Violence, held in check by will alone. Skills and memories and training that ran deeper than anything she had ever sensed in another being. He was like an ocean that had been pretending to be a puddle. What are you? She whispered. Ho did not look away. I am the man who loves you. Everything else is complicated. Complicated? Vila felt hysteria rising in her chest. I thought you were fragile. I had guards follow you to keep you safe. I never spoke of war because I thought it would frighten you. And now I find you standing in a room full of corpses like they are nothing. They are not nothing. They were enemies who wanted to hurt you, so I stopped them. You stopped 40 soldiers, 40 Kel warriors by yourself. Yes. Elder Myra arrived behind Vila. The old woman's face went white as she saw the scene. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she could speak. Impossible, she managed to say. This is impossible. Humans cannot do this. No species can do this. Ho finally turned to look at her. You were wrong about humans, Elder. You thought we were weak because we look soft and die young, but weakness and strength are not always easy to see. What kind of monster are you? The kind that protects what it loves. His voice was still gentle, still patient, as if he was explaining something simple to a confused child. I never lied about that part. Vila walked forward slowly. Her feet moved through the blood and bodies without stopping. She stood in front of her husband and looked into his eyes. They were the same eyes she had looked into every day for 3 years, brown and warm and full of quiet kindness. But now she could see what was behind them. Now she understood the stillness was not peace. It was control. Perfect, absolute control over something that could destroy armies. "Why did you never tell me?" she asked. "Because you looked at me like I was precious." His voice cracked slightly. "No one has ever looked at me that way before. My whole life people have seen me as a weapon, a tool, something to be aimed at enemies and then put away. But you saw something different. You saw someone worth loving. So you hid this from me. I wanted to be the man you saw, not the thing I was made to be." He reached up and touched her face, his bloody fingers gentle against her silver-blue skin. "I never wanted you to be afraid of me." "I am not afraid of you." Vila was surprised to find this was true. "I am angry, I am confused, I feel like I am meeting a stranger, but I am not afraid." "Good," he smiled, and it was his real smile, the one she knew. "Because I am still the same person. Everything I showed you was real. The garden, the books, the quiet mornings together, that was me. This is also me. Both things are true. How can I trust anything you say now?" "You cannot." He dropped his hand. "All I can do is ask you to give me time to prove myself again, after we survive this, after your empire is safe." Hana appeared in the doorway, still holding her pistol. She looked exhausted and terrified, but also strangely proud. "He saved everyone in the bunker," she told the queen. "Every servant, every child. He stood between them and the Kell without hesitation." Vila looked at her husband, at the blood on his hands, at the bodies around him, at the gentle curve of his lips and the kindness that still lived in his eyes despite everything. She made her decision. "We will talk more about this later," she said. "Right now, we have a war to win." Ho nodded. "What do you need?" "Our fleet is holding, but the Kell command ship is still out there. As long as Commander lives, they will keep fighting." "Then needs to die." Vila blinked. "The command ship is surrounded by their entire fleet. Even our best soldiers could not reach it." "I can reach it." Ho said it simply, like he was offering to run an errand. "I am not alone, Vila. There are others like me scattered across the galaxy. If I call them, if we work together, we can end this war tonight." "How?" "We take their head off." He looked toward the shattered windows, toward the sky where ships battled among the stars. "The Kell follow strength. When their commander falls, they will break, and we will make sure he falls." Vila stared at him. This quiet man she had married, this gardener she had tried to protect, was offering to personally assassinate the most feared warlord in the galaxy. And looking at him now, covered in the blood of his enemies, she believed he could do it. "Go," she said, "end this and come back to me." Ho kissed her forehead softly. "I will always come back to you." Then he turned and walked out of the throne room, past the bodies he had made, past the sister who was seeing him for the first time, past the elder who had called him weak. The weapon was awake, and it had been given a target. Behind him, Queen Vila stood among the ruins of her throne room and wondered if she would ever see her husband again. Not the gentle man she had known. That person might not have ever been real. But whoever came back to her, she knew one thing for certain. She had never been the one protecting him. It had always been the other way around. Ho stood in a small communication room deep beneath the palace. Screens surrounded him, each one showing a different face. Some were human. Some looked human but had small differences that most people would never notice. Slightly odd eye colors, two perfect bone structures, the same stillness that lived behind all of their expressions. The Vanguard had answered his call. 12 of us within striking distance," said a woman named Jin. She was somewhere on a Kell supply ship, working as a slave laborer that no one suspected. 3 more can reach the command ship within the hour." The fleet is in chaos, added a man called Dong. He was on a neutral space station monitoring communications. Is getting frustrated. He expected this to be easy. It will be easy, Ho said, for us. He explained the plan quickly. The fleet would push hard against the Kel right flank, creating a gap in their formation. During the confusion, 3 small stealth pods would slip through the battle and attach to his command ship. 15 Vanguard operatives would board the ship, fight their way to the bridge, and kill everyone who stood in their way. Simple, direct, brutal. What about extraction? Jin asked. There is no extraction, Ho replied. We get out if we can. If we cannot, we make sure is dead before we fall. No one argued. No one hesitated. This was what they had been made for. This was why they existed. One by one, the screens went dark as the operatives moved to their positions. Ho left the communication room and headed for the palace landing bay. And Soldier was waiting with a small ship, fast and dark, and designed to be invisible to sensors. The Queen ordered me to fly you, the soldier said. He was young and clearly terrified. Is it true, what they are saying about you? What are they saying? That you killed 50 Kel soldiers by yourself, that you tore them apart with your bare hands. Ho considered the question. It was 43, and I used weapons sometimes. The soldier stared at him with wide eyes. Are you even human? I used to be. Ho climbed into the ship. Are we ready? Yes, sir. They launched into the chaos above Prime. The battle was massive. Ships and Kel ships clashed in the darkness, filling the void with fire and debris. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The dying screams of thousands echoed across every communication channel. Ho watched it all with calm eyes. He had seen battles before. He had caused many of them. This was simply one more task to complete. The stealth pod approached its command ship from below, using the burning wreckage of a destroyed cruiser as cover. 2 other pods were coming from different directions. On the command ship itself, 3 Vanguard operatives who had been working undercover for years were already moving into position. The breach happened at exactly the same moment in 3 different locations. Ho cut through the hull with a plasma torch and dropped into a corridor filled with Kel guards. They had perhaps 2 seconds to realize what was happening before he was among them. He moved without thinking. His body knew what to do. Every step, every strike, every dodge had been programmed into him through years of training and enhancement. He was not fighting. He was executing a series of movements that his muscles knew better than his conscious mind. Kel soldiers fell around him like leaves in a strong wind. Elsewhere on the ship, the other operatives were doing the same thing. The Kel had never faced an enemy like this. They were used to battles of strength and endurance, where size and numbers decided everything. They had no defense against ghosts that moved faster than their eyes could follow. Ho reached a junction and met up with Jin and another operative named One. Both were covered in blood. None of it was their own. Bridge is 2 levels up, Jin reported. Heavy defenses, at least 30 guards plus himself. Then we go through them. Ho started moving again. Stay close, kill anything that moves. They climbed through the ship like sharks swimming through dark water. The Kel tried to stop them. The Kel failed. Alarms screamed. Soldiers rushed from every direction. It did not matter. The bridge doors were the heaviest on the ship, designed to survive direct hits from capital weapons, impossible to breach with normal tools. One produced a device from his pack, small, silver, and humming with energy, from the weapons lab on Earth, never been used in the field before. He placed it against the door. Everyone stepped back. The explosion was focused and contained. It punched a hole through the reinforced metal like a fist through paper. Smoke poured out, and through it they could see the bridge. Commander was waiting. He was massive, even for a Kel, nearly 4 meters tall, covered in armor that had been decorated with the bones of species he had conquered. His eyes burned red in the darkness, and in his hands he held a blade as long as Ho was tall. "Humans," said and laughed. "The Queen sends humans to kill me. This is an insult." "We are not ordinary humans," Ho replied. He stepped through the hole in the door, walking toward the warlord without fear. "And you are already dead. You just have not realized it yet." Roared and charged. The fight was not like the others, was faster than any Kel Ho had faced, stronger. His blade cut the air so quickly it screamed. Each swing could have sliced a normal human in half. Ho danced around the attacks, reading the patterns, looking for openings. Was powerful, but he was also angry and overconfident. He had never fought anything that could challenge him. The first cut went across his arm, shallow but it drew blood. The second cut was deeper, across the thigh. The third was across the face. "What are you?" snarled, backing away for the first time. "No human can fight like this." "I told you." Ho moved forward, his hands steady, his eyes cold. "We are not ordinary humans. We are what humanity becomes when it stops being afraid. We are the monsters that protect our species from monsters like you." He struck again, and again, each movement precise, each wound calculated. Fell to his knees, blood pouring from a dozen cuts. His great sword clattered to the ground. His breath came in wet, rattling gasps. "Mercy," he whispered. Ho stood over him. "Did you give mercy to the 12 million people you killed 3 days ago? Did you give mercy to the children who burned on?" Had no answer. "This is what humans do," Ho said quietly. "We remember and we repay." His hand moved once, quick and final. Commander, Terror of 100 Worlds, died on the floor of his own bridge. The communication systems were still active. Ho walked to the main console and broadcast a message across the entire battlefield. "Is dead. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now or we will destroy you all." Outside, the Kel ships began to drift. Their coordination shattered. Their will to fight crumbled. Without their leader, they were nothing but scattered predators with no direction. The fleet pushed forward. What had been a desperate defense became a devastating counterattack. The war ended in a single day. On its bridge, surrounded by bodies and fire, Ho allowed himself one moment of stillness. He had done what needed to be done. Humanity's secret had been revealed, but its people were safe. The Empire would survive. And somewhere on the world below, a queen was waiting for him. He had promised to come back to her. Now he had to find out if she would still want him when he did. 3 weeks had passed since the war ended. The galaxy had changed. News of what happened on Prime spread across every planet, every station, every ship that floated in the void between stars. The Kel Dominion had collapsed into civil war, its various factions fighting over the scraps of what had left behind. The Empire was rebuilding, honoring its dead, counting its survivors. And everywhere, people were talking about humans. For centuries, humanity had been seen as one of the lesser species. Clever with technology, yes. Good at making friends and treaties, certainly. But physically weak, short-lived, and ultimately unimportant in the grand scheme of things. A species that other civilizations protected out of pity more than respect. That belief had been shattered. The story of Ho had spread like fire. The quiet husband who had killed dozens of Kel warriors with his bare hands. The hidden soldier who had led a team of superhumans to assassinate the most feared warlord in the galaxy. Other stories followed. Other Vanguard members who had revealed themselves during the war. Other acts of impossible violence from a species that was supposed to be helpless. The universe was forced to ask a new question. If humans could hide this kind of power, what else were they hiding? On Prime, the reconstruction continued. The palace was being repaired. The gardens were being replanted. Life was slowly returning to normal. Queen Vila sat in her private chambers, reading reports and signing orders. The work never ended. An empire required constant attention, even more so after a crisis. A knock came at her door. "Enter," she said without looking up. Ho walked in. He was dressed simply as he always was, plain clothes, no weapons visible. He looked exactly like the gentle gardener she had married 3 years ago. But now she knew what lived beneath that gentle surface. "The council meeting is in an hour," he said. "Elder Myra wants to discuss the human integration proposal." "I know." Vila set down her papers and looked at him. "You do not need to remind me of my schedule. That is what servants are for." "I know, I just wanted to see you." They had not spoken properly since the war. There had been too much to do, too many crises to manage. They slept in the same room but barely touched. They talked about work but not about each other. Vila stood and walked to the window. Outside, the 3 moons were rising over the crystal towers. Workers moved through the gardens below, clearing rubble and planting new flowers. "The garden is coming back," she said. "They found most of your seeds were still alive." "That is good." Silence fell between them, heavy and uncomfortable. "I do not know how to do this," Vila admitted finally. "I do not know how to be your wife anymore. Every time I look at you, I see 2 people, the man I married and the weapon I never knew." Ho came to stand beside her. He did not touch her. He just stood there close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Which one do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want both. I want neither. I want to go back to not knowing." She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling its coolness. Was anything real? The mornings in the garden, the nights together, the way you held my hand when I was tired, was any of it truly you? "All of it was me." His voice was gentle but firm. "The Vanguard program made me into a weapon, but it did not choose what I love. It did not choose who I love. When I touch you, when I hold you, when I wake up beside you, those are my choices. Those are the most real things I have ever done." "How can I believe that?" "You cannot, not with words." He finally reached out and took her hand. His fingers were warm, calloused from gardening, stained slightly from soil. "But I can show you if you let me, every day, for as long as you want." Vila looked at their joined hands. Hers was silver blue, elegant and smooth. His was human, small and rough. They were so different. They had always been so different. But something fit, something matched. "I am going to ask you questions," she said. "Many questions about your past, about what they did to you, about what you have done. I need to understand." "I will answer everything. Some of the answers might make me angry." "I know. Some might make me sad." "I know that too." Vila turned to face him. She looked into his eyes, really looked, trying to see past the calm surface to whatever truth lived beneath. "I watched you kill those soldiers in the throne room," she said. "I saw what you are capable of. I should be terrified of you. I should demand you leave my empire and never return." "Do you want me to leave?" "No," the word came out before she could think about it. "No, I do not want you to leave, and that frightens me more than anything." Ho smiled. It was a small smile, sad and hopeful at the same time. "I have been frightened of you since the day we met." "Frightened of me?" "Terrified. You are the first person who ever made me feel like I could be more than what they made me. The first person who looked at me and saw something worth loving." His voice grew thick. "I was afraid that if you ever saw the truth, you would stop, and I would go back to being just a weapon." Vila reached up and touched his face. She traced the familiar lines of his jaw, his cheeks, his brow. Everything looked the same. Everything felt the same. "You are not just a weapon," she said. "You are my husband. That means something to me. Even after everything. Especially after everything." She pulled him closer, wrapping her arms around him. He was shorter than her, smaller, built from a species that should have been inferior. But he held her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. "I love you," he whispered into her shoulder. "I love you too, both of you, all of you." She pulled back enough to look at him. "We start over today, no more secrets, no more lies, just us figuring out who we are together." I would like that. They stood together at the window, watching the moons rise over their broken, healing world. Later that week, Hana returned to Earth. She carried stories that would reshape how humanity saw itself, stories of hidden warriors, stories of strength that had been kept secret for generations, stories that would inspire and frighten and change everything. Elder Myra, humbled by everything she had witnessed, became one of the strongest voices for human cooperation. She never apologized for her old views, but she did not need to. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. And in the palace garden, as spring came to prime and new flowers began to bloom, Ho planted lilies. Vila found him there one afternoon, his hands deep in the soil, his face peaceful and content. She sat beside him in the grass, not caring about her royal robes or the dirt. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Nothing important," he smiled up at her, "just glad to be home." Home, he said it so easily now, like he truly believed it. Vila leaned against his shoulder and watched him work. She thought about all the things she had learned in the past weeks, the darkness of his past, the violence he carried inside, the impossible things he could do with his hands. And then she thought about this, a man in a garden, growing flowers, smiling in the sunlight. Both things were true, both things were him. Maybe that was okay. Maybe people could be more than one thing. Maybe love was not about understanding everything, but about accepting what you could not understand. "I want to learn," she said suddenly. "Learn what?" "Gardening. I want you to teach me." Ho looked at her with surprise and then with joy. Real joy, the kind that lit up his whole face. "Really? Really? If these are the things you love, I want to understand them." He handed her a small shovel. Their fingers touched, and neither of them pulled away. "Start here," he said gently. "Dig a hole not too deep. Then we put in the seed and cover it with soil. Then we wait." "How long?" "As long as it takes." He looked at her with those calm, deep eyes that she was finally beginning to understand. Some things are worth waiting for. Vila dug into the soil. It was messy and strange and nothing like running an empire. But sitting there with her husband, learning something simple and peaceful, she felt happier than she had in years. The storm had passed, and in its place, something new was beginning to grow.